I have another special guest for us today, and that is Heather Nelson of Bridge Raise. Now, she's been in the sector for about 20 years and specializes in corporate fundraising. So, she's here to talk to us about corporate partnerships and how we can secure corporate sponsorships right through to building lasting relationships with our corporate partners. So, with that, let's welcome Heather. Well, welcome, Heather. I am very excited that you're here because you have a YouTube channel, which is, I think, how I first found you. And then we connected on Instagram. And I know that you specialize in corporate partnerships. So I thought you'd be the best person to come on and talk to us about corporate sponsorships.
Yes, thanks so much for having me. It is so fun when you get a chance to get to know someone in YouTube and social and then have so much in common. So I'm thrilled to be here. Yeah, my name is Heather. My company is Bridge Raise, and that's all we do. We work with charities on nonprofits on their corporate partnerships, corporate sponsorships. So when all the other stuff is going on in the fundraising, marketing, and social media space, we are focusing in on that so that we can bring the best stuff to our clients and community.
Perfect. Well, a lot of our subscribers are newer nonprofits, so they're just starting out. And I was hoping maybe you can give us kind of just a basic, rough and dirty corporate sponsorship. What forms does it take?
Right? Okay. So first I'll start with a bit of this definition. Already we've used the word sponsorship and partnership. And I think one of the most confusing things when you're getting started, honestly, is like, what are we talking about here? Right? There are companies that give money to charities, and sometimes they call it a donation, but they really mean, but we want marketing visibility. And sometimes they call it sponsorship, but they're not really getting much marketing visibility. So, like, very technically, a corporate donation, technically you should be able to tax receipt it and do your good work with the money and there not be any visibility. And technically, corporate sponsorship, there should be no tax receipt and it should be all about the visibility, right? That all about the benefits to the business. Can be employee engagement, can be visibility of their brand, but you're delivering something very intentionally that can be measured. And if we call those the two ends of the spectrum, what I see most often is something in the middle. I use the word partnership, but really there's all kinds of words for it. But most organizations are giving money and they're wanting some combination of visibility and impact and like a big mixture in there. So important for people who are getting started to know what the company is looking for and what you're offering. So you need whatever terminology you're using to make sure that there's a common understanding between the two people that are involved, the two entities that are involved. So that's like my real recommendation around getting started. And then the next thing is like, why are they investing in you and what are you giving them? Like that exchange. And it really is, when you're making a good decision about working with a company, I love to think about the win-win or the value exchange. Like there's something happening that the company really wants, and there's something happening that you really want. You want money invested in your mission, and they want their employees to have a great experience, or they want their logo and presence related to an event. And so that's where that exchange happens. So first thing you need to know before you get started is what you're offering and how you're going to offer it to the companies. And I suggest you write that down. I like to call it a benefit framework or program guidelines. I also like it when you write down who you're going to take money from and who you're not going to take money from. So there may be some real rules about that at your organization, and all getting on the same page about that. So I talk about having program guidelines or a list of benefits as two really nice things to start with. I have some templates around that, which people can touch base with me on. But the main idea is, even if it's on like a Google Doc, like write it down so that everybody who's involved can understand it and move forward with it. And it does not need to be like, I know we're going to talk about pitch deck and deck packages later. Don't start with that. Don't worry about the look and feel. Just get the information down, get everybody in agreement so that you're ready to talk to companies in a way that you can count on it being the same with each one. And there's some transparency and there's some consistency, because companies really like that.
I know the motivators for companies to donate is a lot different than individuals and what motivates them to donate and figuring out what the potential benefits are for that corporation.
Yeah, it definitely is different. I think I don't want to undersell the fact that companies do care about the impact and the work you're doing, right? So it's not like they don't care about that part. It is important that you are having meaningful impact and that you can explain to them fairly concisely, which is an important tip, fairly concisely what that impact is. So I would say one of the big differences is when we're talking about individual giving, often we have time for a long story and multiple explanations about our impact. Usually, when we're talking to a corporate audience, we're trying to boil that down quite briefly into what our impact is, what the numbers are, something quite concise. They care about that. And then on the other hand, they may also care about who's seeing their logo, who they're interacting with at the event or in the program, how their employees can get involved, so that there are these other things that are important to them that don't show up the same way with individual donors that are important to consider. When I'm making recommendations, I do say that like some of the easiest ways to get a company to respond to you is if their employees can be involved with you, or if your impact is very connected to what they say that they want to be doing in the community. That's a great launching off point, right? That's where you start the conversation. And then you find, okay, and then there's a few other things, right? A few other things that they're looking for from you. So yes, it's different, but let's not think that there's not a part of them that wants the story and the impact. It's important too. It's really important too.
Okay, so now we know what we won't support. I know with the Salvation Army, we wouldn't support anything tobacco related or gambling related. And then now we know the benefits. We can provide employee engagement, the reach that we're going to provide. What would the next steps be?
If we're getting started, then I think we're starting to talk about who we want to reach out to. Okay. And my first recommendation is this does not need to start with a big list. And we want to think about what I talk about relationship first, or we want to talk about this journey that we're going to go on with the corporate prospect, the company that we think prospect is the term I'm going to use to talk about the company that we'd like to get money from if people aren't used to that terminology. So we want to identify who our corporate prospects are, who are the list of people. And one of the things I find people often start with like a super, super long list. And I'm always like we don't need a super long list. Let's start with like 5 or 6 companies, maybe, that are companies that we think are a good fit. And the first step is to do a little bit of research, right? Figure out, are these companies aligned with what we want to do? Yeah, like we have the list of the ones that are like definite no's, but now we might want to look for, if we're a youth serving organization, companies that have identified youth as an audience that is either their customers, is their community investment priority. Maybe it's women's issues and it's a company that's really aligned with women as their consumer. And then, they may have identified that. So you want to do a little bit of research before you reach out. And I see a lot of times people trying to skip this step. It's a critical step. And then the next step, after you've got a little bit of a list, you've figured out how they align with you, is to try to have a conversation. And what we want to do is send them a little bit of information. And when I say little, it is going to be less than everybody on this call watching right now thinks. It's not an attachment. It's not a whole bunch of stuff. It's an email or a phone message with a few key points, because they don't need to know everything you do. And I know this really hurts our nonprofit charity souls that they don't need to know all you need to do, but they really don't need to know all you do. They need to know a very, very short snippet about what you do and about why you are calling and how that aligns with them. And based on that and some follow-up, you hopefully can get a call, and that's the next step, right? And so I find that one of the most common things when we're getting started is a lot of information to a really long list. And we're just hoping for like magic to happen somehow.
Spray and
And
pray.
that's right. And my recommendation is like shorten up that list and shorten up that information. spend more time getting a few people, few companies for more money that really align and we might build with, than like a random person who saw it and said, okay, what the heck, I'll give them $500, or whatever the number is, or just putting as many things into those online application forms as I can. Like, that's not how we build long-term sustainable relationships. It starts with a conversation, or at least an email exchange. If you can't have a conversation, at least ask a question in the email and they answer, and then you're at least on their radar as like an entity they've heard of before you start sending more and more information. So yeah, that's like the getting started point that I encourage people to try.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are afraid to pick up the phone when I know so many community investment people and they are open to having a phone call. They rather talk to you and answer your questions so that you can submit something that's in line with what they're looking for.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think that, who they don't want to hear from, the person that has done no research, has not thought about how they fit, that kind of thing. If you show in that very first email that you've done enough research to show that you understand what they're looking for and that you can see a connection and this is what it is, then they're more willing to take that call, right? And have a meeting with that person. If you're just, here's everything there is about my organization and an attachment, can you figure out how we fit with you? Then no, they don't want that call. That's and you may even end up in a different spot. One of the fears is, okay, maybe I'll pick the wrong thing. I hear that, maybe I'll pick the wrong thing. I'm like, you know what? Let go of that fear and try a thing. If you've picked the wrong thing, one of two things will happen. They will say no to a call right now, and you will try a different thing in a month. Or they will say yes. And as part of that conversation, you will hear from them that you need to move the thing over to a different topic. And both of those are better outcomes than asking them to select the thing, discover that they have not read it because it's way too long and they don't have the time, and they're not connecting those dots for you because that's not their job, and you're stuck in the in the abyss at that point. So I'm like, make your best guess and then move along, right? And you will hopefully get more traction over time with that approach. That's the evidence I've seen, certainly.
Yeah. I love your approach. I love it because so many people are focused on the pitch deck or the sponsorship package, thinking that that's what's going to get them in the door when it's the research and the conversations.
I mean, I can't tell you how many times the pitch deck or proposal or the thing in the portal is after we already know we're getting the money, or it's at the very least after we've been well educated by somebody, and now it's like to pass around internally to some other people in the organization. Like, there's lots of ways that these tools could be used, and usually it's not the first decision. It's usually somewhere else down the journey of the relationship between the two players. There is there's sometimes exceptions to that, but if you really want to build longevity and sustainability, which I hear all the time, right? Corporate is so much work. You don't want to do it once for a transactional thing that goes away. This is the strategy you need to put in place to be thinking about how this builds over time, because you're getting to know the people, you're getting to know what they want, you're meeting their business needs, and it's a lot easier to renew and create a sustainable relationship when you're actually meeting a business need and not just like a random check that, it may be a short-term win, but it really doesn't last.
Okay, so once we get the call, and I think you have a download for this.
Yeah, so I'm going to offer that if people are interested in what I recommend happening on the call, I have a download that I will offer and the link here. But the short version is that you really need to strategize around how to be getting information from them while giving a little bit of information about you. I find that our tendency is to really present a whole lot of information about ourselves and leave with not as much knowledge about what they want as we should. So the structure and the idea is to be thinking more about asking questions and less about talking.
All right. Well, anything that you want to chat about before we move on to the pitch deck or the sponsorship package once we get there?
No, I think that like I guess the only other thing I would say, which is probably what one of the things that people don't want to hear, is that that period of time when you're trying to get the meeting can take some time. It can be more than one email. You might pick up the phone and leave a message. There may even be a social move or two. I have some tactics I like to use in LinkedIn to try to get a meeting, but it's not one email. It's several outreaches. And I will say over time, the number of times my clients, we support them often in like the different outreaches and like being a bit strategic about them. So it doesn't seem like we're just over and over again saying, give me a meeting, give me a meeting, give me a meeting. How can we be creative so that the follow-ups are unique and fun and different and feel less icky. So we strategize on that. But one of the things I hear over and over again from clients is like, oh my goodness, I can't believe that it took five follow-ups and now I have the meeting I was waiting for, or now I've got the check and it was this many communications. I think in general, we expect it to be shorter than it is. It does take multiple follow-ups. And rarely do I hear back like the reason that we didn't get the check is because there was too many emails. They fall off, they get deleted, it's a bad day. There's so many reasons people don't answer your email that have nothing to do with what was in it. And so really think to yourself, expect that you're going to send a few follow-ups so that you aren't disappointed if it takes a few follow-ups. But yeah, we can move on from there. Then the meeting happens, the meeting goes awesome. And then what? Is that what you want to talk about?
Yep.
Right. So the pitch deck, we talked a little bit about this. So I guess there's a few things here. Is sometimes it can be valuable to have I use the word pitch deck loosely, but a document of some sort that gives a high level overview of what you're there to talk about. This is not a proposal. To be very clear, this is not a document that includes financial amounts. It's not a one that includes a very specific package. Sometimes at the very front end, in order to get the call, you might have a few slides or a one pager that just kind of adds some color to your email. I never use it on the first email, but sometimes on the second or third, if I'm not hearing back, I might give them a little bit more information. And that might also be a tool that I use on that introductory call if I need a little bit more substance or I want to leave a giveaway, a follow-up. After you've had the conversation, then there's an opportunity to move into more of what people are probably thinking of when they think about a pitch deck, where there is more detailed information about the packages, etc. Spoiler alert, almost always, if you're on a sponsorship call, they will ask you to send the package. And they may even ask you to send the levels. And your immediate strategy should be to avoid doing that. To me, the document that has all the levels is an internal document. And if we're showing it, we're showing maybe parts of it in as part of a conversation, but it's really not best practice anymore to send out all that information to all of your corporate partners. It is rather to listen to them and then in your proposal maybe you're putting a couple of options, but you're just giving them the packages that are relevant to them. And the reason is that we don't want to race to if there's one thing they want, we don't want them looking through this whole table that gives all the different benefits and all the different amounts and picking the lowest number that meets that requirement. We want to listen to them and offer them packages that we know will best serve their business needs and our business needs. And so the proposal or pitch deck needs to be something that you can work with. It should not be like a static document. And it should have this ability for you to insert the option that suits the donor best. As a small organization, you may only have one or two options, like that, and that's what I like to see when you've really simplified it down. If you're small and you're asking for fairly small amounts, there doesn't need to be 1,000 different variations. Like simplify it and offer them what you can really execute well, and then you can build.
That is fantastic. This is why I bring on pros on the show, because I'm still kind of stuck back in the what they taught me in CFRE school, right? That you need to have all these different benefits and
Yeah. Well, and you know what is good about that? And I will say that document that often I see shared publicly, having that internally, super important. So I'm not suggesting that we don't have that list of benefits and the amounts and check boxes. As an organization, you internally need that. Most organizations do, just to keep organized, right? But we don't need to show what's inside our closet to all the people. So this is your management tool. It's your, it's your intellectual property. It's your organization's benefits. Choose who gets to see what, when, right? This may be the kind of thing that your board signs off on, but everybody doesn't need to see it. And yeah, we are seeing, this desire for customized sponsorships. And one of the easiest ways to do that in a way that you don't want to customize everyone is to have that document internal, but then put the right version of that page of that into your proposal deck. So it's a little bit customized, but not that much, right? Like there may be one element that you're like, okay, you're specifically related to the coffee station, or you're specifically, on this one, you have this one special benefit for you, and that's one bullet that we change, and the other 6 things are the same for everybody. And so that's how you can make it a little bit customized without giving yourself a huge headache and a lot of work, where every single thing is different, which we don't want.
Well, I'm going to put your contact information in the description in case anyone would like to reach out with you. Do you work with smaller grassroots organizations?
The really small grassroots organizations, I have a number of templated tools and videos and things like that. Most organizations that I work with are a little bit bigger, but not huge organizations. But yeah, there's ways that I can support all size organizations, and certainly have tools that they can leverage in a sort of do-it-yourself way.
Okay. Well, we're also going to include your LinkedIn, your YouTube, all of your contact information so that people can access you and your resources.
Before we sign off, I did want to quickly mention that one of the things that I know, because we are just talking to some smaller organizations, that I really encourage smaller organizations to leverage, is that I find that smaller organizations just naturally have local relationships and are super good at doing local stewardship or local outreach and communication. This is an amazing thing that big organizations struggle with, right? They end up sending out everything being quite impersonal often because they're big. So just really think about what you can do that's special at your local level, or as a small organization. The fact that the distance between you and the beneficiary is smaller might give you some special benefits, and in communicating with the donor, to the company afterwards too, like allow yourself to be yourself, right? You don't have to produce these flashy things. I think sometimes small organizations see what bigger organizations are doing and think, oh, I can't do that, so I won't communicate with the company. And what I would say is, like, you're more do it yourself, down to earth. This is how we do things, is super appreciated by companies of all sizes. And so if you can write up a quick email, or like shoot a quick video on your phone, or mock up something in Canva and put it in social, these things are all really appreciated. And you should not, like, don't compare yourself to them. Companies are investing in different organizations for different reasons, and your smallness may be exactly the reason they're investing in you. So let them be a part of that, and let them see how you do your work, how you communicate, without comparison.
Oh, and I think sometimes smaller grassroots organizations are more fun. I have a client who I saw the best thank you ever. It was, thanks for the money, going to Vegas.
Right?
With a big
Yeah,
laughing emoji, and then the impact, and it was
so fun.
awesome.
Right. Or like the really spontaneous picture. Like you can sometimes just, like, there's not a photographer here. Here's the picture of us doing the thing, and like just send it. Right. And that's like so authentic and real. And that's, that's that impact side. Just because they're big corporations does not mean that they don't want to see the realness of it. And I think that you can really, yeah, you can leverage that, like keeping it real message and authenticity as part of the relationship in a really positive way. And I love seeing that when organizations do that. Just be you, be you. You don't need to be the big hospital or the big university. You can be you and still get support from companies and businesses.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Heather. Just thank you again. I think this was perfect for some of our subscribers who are smaller, more grassroots.
Thanks so much for having me, and I wish them so much luck in raising the money from companies.